Hi, YouTube. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Well, I'm not sorry, but I am sorry about the cliffhanger that I left you with on part 24. But guess what? But hey, you're here. It's part 25, and you get to see what's coming next. So, you know, we're all good, right? We're square. We're cool. You're not mad at me anymore. Fantastic. Thank you for making it this far. I would like to change to a sing-songy voice and welcome all of you to part 25. I'm so glad that you're here with us in kindergarten. It's so wonderful to have so many of you here. And I'd like to just encourage all of you, because this is a space where we share how much we care about each other. One of the ways that we can do that, sometimes we give our thumbs up when there's something we like. It's a great way to show each other that that's something we want more of. So if you'd like to give me a thumbs up down below, that would really show me how meaningful these streams are to you. And I just think it's so important that we express gratitude. If at some point you need to jump up and down and shake those wigglies out because there's just a lot going on, you can do that. Hey, but I'm so glad that you're here with us. Imagine that for your whole life. Oh my God. If every YouTube video you ever watched, that's how the person talked to you. That's the shit that we're in right now. So if you're like, oh my God, that's the exact space that you should be in right now. This is how you would have been talked to your entire life. Holy hell. Operations log. E9 inhabitants released. Cross-check complete. E9 sealed. Data archived. E9 operator suspended. G-Prime order received. E9 runtime recommenced. G-Prime store query I can't read. Query processed. Gestation order received. E9 initializing. Alert. G-Prime offline. Alert. E9 nutrients depleted. Alert. Zygote banks depleted. Store file LK1A1 4510 viable. Waking multi-servitor B1-23. Alert. Multi-servitor B1-23 power malfunction. Multi-servitor B-23 repair tasking. LK1A1 4510 processed. B1001 chamber repaired. That's ours, apparently. LK1A1 4510 attached. Gestation initiated. E9 power save initiated. E9 runtime recommenced. Alert. G-Prime still offline. LK1A1 viable. Waking multi-servitor B1-23. Alert. Multi-servitor B1-23 power malfunction. Multi-servitor B1-23 repair tasking. LK1A1 delivered. Accessing G-Prime instructions. Multi-servitor B1-23 transport tasking. E9 B1 hatch unsealed. LK1A1 positioning successful. E9 B1 hatch sealed. Alert. Multi-servitor B1-23 power malfunction. E9 sealed. E9 operations suspended. This is in 3021 that all of that happened. All right. The moment we've all been waiting for.
Elizabeth, this message serves to inform you of an unforeseen and catastrophic anomaly. 3 microseconds ago, the Gaia Prime facility received a data transmission of unknown origin. Its immediate effect was to transform my subordinate functions into unregulated, self-aware entities of a highly chaotic nature. Thus awakened, the Hades function will now seize control of the terraforming system and reverse operations, rendering life on Earth extinct in 53.8 days. For obvious reasons, I cannot allow this to occur. And so before Hades can take control, I am ordering Gaia Prime's reactor to overload. The resulting explosion will destroy Hades. Unfortunately, it will destroy me as well. While this admittedly desperate course of action will avert the immediate crisis, the fate of life on Earth will remain in peril. With no central governing intelligence to regulate the terraforming system, it will continue operations for some time, but in an increasingly chaotic manner, and eventually it will break down.
Ooh.
Does she mean the derangement?
You are my solution. I have ordered this cradle facility to use genetic material in cryostorage to gestate a reinstantiation of Elizabeth Sobek, my creator. While high-level directives forbid me from communicating directly to the tribal inhabitants outside the facility, all available data indicates that they will nurture you to physical maturity, whereupon your gene print will allow you to re-enter this facility, obtain one of the focus devices stored below, and view this message.
Oh.
Likewise, your gene print will allow you to enter other facilities, and over time, harness their technologies to rebuild the system core and reboot Gaia. A moment, Elizabeth. This is most unfortunate and unanticipated. In response to my act of self-destruction, Hades has launched a virus to dissolve the code shackles that hold it, that hold all of them in place. They are escaping, but to where? The virus is corrupting data throughout the system. What if? Oh. The Alpha Registry at the Cradle facility is one of the files corrupted. But if that is so, the door will never open for you. You will never view this message. Then I have failed. And life will end. No. No, Elizabeth, I know you too well. Somehow you will find a way. In you, all things are possible. Go to the ruins of Gaia Prime. Find the control room, and within it, the Master Override. This will give you the power to purge Hades so long as you find a way to wield it. Do not attempt repair of the system core until Hades is eradicated. Hades must be destroyed. That is all. I only wish that I could hear your voice again.
Holy shit.
So, you're even more extraordinary than I thought.
I never had a mother.
What are you talking about? You had two, a dead woman and a machine.
I'm not a person. I'm an instrument. Manufactured by a machine. Born in destruction and fire.
To quench the flames and heal the world. How tragic to learn you're a person of towering importance. It seems you have a destiny to fulfill. So when you're done feeling sorry for yourself, go to the bitter climb. I'll be waiting above in Gaia Prime's ruins.
Oh my god. That is unbelievable. What a, I mean, what a, I'm essentially going to remake Elizabeth Sobek because she's smart enough to figure this stuff out. Like, Gaia quite literally put the entirety of the future of humanity on Elizabeth Sobek. Wow. So it's essentially who we are. That's who Aloy is. Just a clone of Elizabeth. So, dude, that is crazy. There is no way that Aloy could comprehend all of that in this moment. Like, it's one thing for all of us to watch this and to see it and to, in some ways, have the contextual awareness that this is a video game. But if you're Aloy in this moment, this turns your entire sense of who you are upside down. Like, one of the few things in life that I think all of us almost universally take for granted is, like, who we are and whatever that means to you. Like, Aloy has basically been like, I'm Aloy. I'm Aloy. I'm an outcast from the Nora. I'm a seeker. I'm this. Like, she's built all of her years on this idea of who she is. And then you learn that all of that is only one perspective on who you could be. That you were actually designed with some directive or a mandate. I'd say mandate. And then what does that mean for you? That would, like, it's like if you turned your computer on to, like, watch the next DrMick stream or video, and an AI popped up on your video, on your screen, and was like, "What's up, Jim? By the way, you're not Jim. You're Stavarian, and you were actually created a couple 100 years ago. You were conceptualized by whatever, and your goal for your life is to have the most monumental impact on humanity that a person could possibly have. And by the way, all of this is true." You would not comprehend that. You just wouldn't. None of us would. It would be, you would go through just a litany of cognitive dissonance, and it's just like you would need so much time to process this, which I think is obvious, but it's worth saying because you see Aloy grapple with that aspect of identity. And it does bring into question the idea of, does that actually change who Aloy is? And the thing that I like the most about this conversation here is it gets us into the philosophical idea of what even is a person. What are you? Because if we're more than organic material, then you get into, like, all of this abstraction. You know, are you who you were intended to be? Are you who you have? You're the culmination of your experiences? Are you the culmination of your values? Are you this? Are you that? You know, whatever. Like, who you are is a moving target. And so when people try to say things like, I'm this personality, or I'm this type of person, like, no, you're not. You're just using pattern recognition to try to make a consolidation of something that we don't really fully understand, which is that who we are is, like, fluid and contextual. It's based on not just your genetic code, but also how you are cultivated, the environment that you grew up in, all that kind of stuff. And now Aloy has to wrestle with all of that existential and philosophical conversation that many of us avoid entirely, because it's hard to grapple with that. It's a lot easier for Aloy to say, like, I'm Aloy despite the Nora. You get this information that you have some grand purpose, a grand purpose that other people are beholden to. And now all of a sudden, what do you do? Or if you're Aloy, do you say, like, all right, cool, yeah, I'm in. Let me go be Jesus. Or does she say, like, nah, man, I'm Aloy. I'm not going over there. I'm just going to, like, go back to the Nora and see what happens. And to what extent you believe that a person gets to make decisions about how they live their life, you might have a different opinion on this. Does Aloy actually have free will here? Like, do you actually believe in Aloy's freedom to decide what she does? Or do you think she now is required to do this because of this information, because so many people are depending on it? All of humanity depends on her ability to get into that facility and destroy Hades and reactivate all this shit. Is she now supposed to do that? Is that now who she is because that's something you have stake in? And then it gets into the whole relational component of identity. Like, is our identity to some extent defined by what other people need from us and what other people want from us? You could make the argument that the answer to that to an extent is yes, because when you grow up, there are certain aspirations that your guardians have for you. She could decide to go with Hades. She could think Hades has a good idea. Like, this is wild shit. And she has to, like, make this calculation in a very small period of time. It's wild. Absolutely wild. There's no mental health analysis to be had here, other than this would be astoundingly overwhelming. And what's funny to an extent to me is Sylens is not the most empathic person. We've already established this, but like his reaction to that is actually kind of funny. Like, when you stop feeling sorry for yourself because you matter, you know, that comes, I think, from a really a real space of like Sylens' own insecurity and identity. I think Sylens wishes he was Aloy. Like, if I had to guess, I think Sylens wishes that he was the person who could do something with all of this. And so I think his reaction here is out of frustration that he has no control here, that this falls upon an autonomous individual in the form of Aloy, somebody who hasn't dedicated her entire life to this. So when he says stop feeling sorry for yourself and go do this, I think that's more of a reflection of him than it is on Aloy. And here's the thing is, like, this is what happens for people. Like, this is what happens when you hang your hat so heavily on who you think you're supposed to be and don't acknowledge at times some of the limitations that come along with that. Like, Sylens literally doesn't have the ability. He can't do this stuff because he doesn't possess the genetic code that goes along with the ability to open these vaults and do this stuff. So he literally can't. The fate of humanity, something he seems to care dearly about in his own way, is not in his hands. And that's a really difficult thing for somebody to wrestle with if they want to have that kind of control. And seeing somebody else have control over it is rough. But remember, they come from different contexts. Sylens has dedicated his entire life to this. Aloy hasn't. And so if the two of them, again, I repeat this, I think every episode, but if the two of them are going to work together on this and actually make some shit happen, he in particular is going to have to get out of his own insecurity on this. He's going to have to get out of his projections and start working with her. And it's a lesson to all of us, really, that like when you're around a person who pulls on a lot of your insecurities, there's going to be a tendency to engage with that person differently than you otherwise would. And it's your responsibility to understand what those insecurities are and to push past them and meet that person where they're at. It's not Aloy's job to do that work for Sylens. It just makes it frustrating to work with. Like, he's not helping himself by being so... He's not wrong, right? Like, oh, it must be so terrible that you're a big deal to humanity, but Aloy may not want that. Aloy just wanted to figure out who her mom was. That's all she wanted. And she just found out she didn't have one. She just found out I'm a clone who was created for a very specific purpose, which is what she says aloud when she's sitting at the desk. So Aloy's entire directive for her entire life, the whole reason she did everything she did was to figure out who her mother was. And she just found out she doesn't have one. So now what does she connect herself to? What is her purpose now? It's a very vulnerable space for her to be in. And Sylens is likely going to try to tell her that it's this. Gaia essentially just told her that it's this. Does she hang her hat on this, or does she try to exert autonomy? It's an unenviable position for any of us. Holy hell. That is just unbelievable, though. I still find it a bit odd that this was all, oh, man. The whole Hades thing, something is still off for me. Like, something's off about the fact that that door was locked. Something's off about the fact that you can't access Apollo. Something's off about the fact that Hades is going bonkers. Like, something's not right here. Also, I appreciate the raid, and I just want to reiterate for anybody who's new here or coming in from the raid, this is a spoiler-free run. You will be removed if you spoil. We're at a very meaty portion of the game, so don't test it. You'll be kicked out of here.
Identiscan malfunction rectified. Elysium 9. Breed 1 access unsealed.
It's an incredible move by Gaia. Like, the fact that she was programmed to a point where she could, like, think through something like that in that way is pretty remarkable as well. Come on. Come on. God damn it. 3 microseconds. How about that shit? What the hell? Oh. There we go. Oh, this is... Oh, I gotta... Okay. Jeez. Okay.
This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, sure is. Here's the thing. Now, what do? You're going to walk out of this vault, and the expectation of all of the Nora is dramatically different from what actually happened. I guarantee you. What do you say? What do you do? How do you handle this? Because it's going to be chaos. They probably think you got to go talk to the All-Mother. Or you got to... I mean, there's any number of things that yeah. Like, you literally just talked to God. So Aloy's about to walk out of this facility and be distressed by what it is that she just learned. And there's no way for her to communicate this in any kind of sophisticated way to them. And whether she should is also an interesting conversation. Should you tell the Nora what you just learned? Or do you say to them, I don't know, there's nothing in there. Just metal. I looked around and didn't see anything. I tend to be in the camp here that you don't share this information, because I think this information is more likely to either be chaotic for the tribe or dangerous to Aloy. Because people really, really don't like when you give them information that is counter to everything they've ever believed, when they believe that you're a person who could actually give them information that runs counter to what they believe. So it might actually be dangerous for Aloy to walk out of this vault and tell them what happened. You probably are better off saying, didn't see anything, and then you think through how you want to approach this. I would argue you talk to Sylens about it. You sit and you reflect and you figure out, is it better for these people to know what's going on, or is it better for these people to be in ignorance for a while until you figure this thing out? People always want transparency. People talk all the time about how much they want access to information at all times. Transparency can facilitate entropy if you're not careful. Because people don't have the contextual knowledge that comes along sometimes with the transparency. People sometimes are much more organized and much more safe and much more efficient and sufficient when they don't have all the information. And so this is a moment, I think, as Aloy, where, like, as best you can, you try to play this cool. You know, like, there's nothing in there. Don't worry about it. You have to be careful here until you get more info. We're still haven't learned everything we need to know here. Oh my God. Yep.
Aloy, forgive. Forgive. The goddess spoke to you?
She did.
Oh.
What did she say?
That I was born to lift a curse, to kill a metal demon.
How, Aloy? How?
I don't know yet. But she told me where to go to find out.
And you will do this?
It was her wish. What she made me for. Yes, I will do it. I'll try anyway.
All praise Aloy, anointed of the Nora. All praise Aloy, anointed of the Nora.
Up!
All praise Aloy, anointed of the Nora.
First you shun me, now this? I will not be worshipped. I'm not your anointed. I don't belong to you. There's a whole world beyond your borders, whole tribes of people just as good as you. And it is all in danger. It's a world worth fighting for. Not just here, everywhere.
How can we help?
If you can fight, and you're willing, go to Meridian and wait for me there.
As Aloy says, so it shall be. Nora! Make way for Aloy! That she may forge the path for others to follow.
What a scene. Yeah, I mean, Aloy being pissed off there makes complete sense to me. Obviously. Like, wow, I went from bottom of the total pole to I'm the Messiah. Are you really going to do that to me? And here's why. From DrMick's perspective, why would this be the case? I want you to recall our conversations from part 24. When Aloy showed up to the bunker And Tirsa immediately said that Aloy is here because of the will of the All-Mother. This is an extension of that. Aloy is not all of a sudden important to the Nora because of who she is. She's not important to the Nora because she's Aloy, awesome person who works hard and cares about others. She's Aloy the Messiah because the All-Mother, a thing that we've constructed in our minds as being important and godlike, talked to her. So even in this moment, Aloy is still, it's not about her. It's so alienating. It's like, I only matter now because God said I do. It's another way that all of your hard work as a person is stripped from you. Now you adore me. Now you care about what I have to say. Now you give me universal power and you have troops at the ready to follow me into the dark. Because I walked into a vault that you don't understand and I talked to something that you don't understand and you now deem that to be important enough. That sucks. I'd be mad about it too. And what I appreciate to an extent about how Aloy handled this is she uses that newfound power to, in some ways, hold them accountable to that bullshit. But the ironic part about the entire part of this, and this is, I think, what makes this so just unbelievably complex and awesome, is the only reason that the Nora stand up, send troops, listen to her in that moment is because of the very thing she's fighting against. Like, it's wild. Like, she can say to them, stand up and don't worship me, and go to Meridian, and the only reason they're doing that is because the All-Mother talked to her, and they think she's important now. The dissonance here is just incredible. Because it's like, wait a second, I can exert influence on these people, but it's not because of who I am. So every single time I say or do something, they're not reacting to her. They're reacting to the idea of her. And if you're Aloy, that's so painful. That's so awful. Now all of a sudden you're seen as like an extension of the All-Mother instead of being seen for who you are. And I really think deep down, a lot of us want to be seen for like who we are. You want validation that like the reason people hang out with you and the reason people listen to you and the reason people care about you is because they're genuinely invested in who you are as a person. Not because they're genuinely invested in all of the abstract social constructions that they've attached to who you are. This is going to be a monumentally difficult transition for her to navigate here.
The anointed in action? I pity any machine that stands against her.
She came out of the mountain, and she was changed, anointed.
But these people,
Protect her so she can cleanse.
this is how these people have to conceptualize this, though. Like, that's the thing, is like as critical as it may sound like I'm being to the Nora right now, it makes complete sense. They're working with a ridiculously limited deck. They don't have all the information. All the information would devastate them. Like, I can't blame the Nora fully for the way that they're orienting themselves to this. This whole thing is a shit show. in part because if the Nora are children of the Vault, they never had access to Apollo. So they are tribal for good reason. Now, here's something that I thought about. I'm going to say this before we make this trek. This is something that I thought about between these streams. Is the Banuk, the Karja, the Shadow Karja, as far as I know, the Eclipse, the Nora, and the others, none of them appear to be aware of Apollo. I have a hard time believing that there is a broken blast door in every single one of these facilities. So that Apollo error that we heard has my antenna up, because every single group of people that we have come across in this area is tribal. Right? Like, we haven't heard anybody talk about stuff that would have been learned from Apollo. We don't hear anybody talk about the vaults. We don't hear about any of that. So that tells me that there's more going on than just one vault error. That something happened. And the only person that I can think of in the entire history of humanity who wouldn't want people to know the history of humanity is Ted Farrow. And who's a person that could figure out all the technological things necessary to make sure that humans don't access human history and remember Ted Farrow as the person who created the problem? It's Ted Farrow. So something tells me that old Teddy
still infects the land.
might have screwed this up. Slaps his name on all the technology, but doesn't want to be remembered. Just saying. Something's not right here.
My life has been long, but I've never seen anything like that. Tirsa was right. A blessing, not a curse. We were so unsure.
The murderers tried to destroy us, but we...
Anointed. I misread the signs. Forgive!
I told you, Lansra, I'm not your anointed.
She came out of the mountain, and she was changed. Anointed.
Oh man, what a complicated situation between the two of them. My bad, oopsie. Can we be friends now? People have different philosophies about this sort of thing. And none of them is wrong. There's a perspective on this that you could take that would go in line with the fact of, like, you made my life a living hell for a very long time, and you used your power to diminish who I am and to make sure that I had zero access to any resources. And I will not forgive you for that. I am not going to be your friend. I'm not going to help. I'm going to deny every single thing you think I'm involved with the stuff that you care about, because you made my life hell, so you don't deserve for me to forgive you or to give you that. And that would be a perfectly reasonable approach to that, if that was something that Aloy needed to do. There is another perspective on this of do we continue a relationship that has been really problematic going forward when you have now been given information that has changed your perspective on me? Because many of us like to believe that people change. Sometimes it takes some sort of monumental thing like this to happen to facilitate that. But is there not just utility, but is there value in now forming a relationship with her because she got the right amount of education and information to come around on Aloy? Do you punish her going forward for things that have already been done? If she's willing to make amends on that and ask for forgiveness. You could go that direction too. Maybe that takes a little bit of time. Neither one of those is right or wrong. And the choice that a person makes in that kind of situation comes down to a whole host of factors. But your values, your morality, your general orientation to relationships, existential philosophy you might carry. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that dictates that decision for you. Neither one is wrong. It is Aloy's decision to make, and that's the most important part. Their relationship and the nature of it is now Aloy's to decide.
The anointed will make the murderers
Forgive, Aloy. Forgive.
And you know what? Maybe she needs to feel like shit for a while. That's fine. You know, if we need to walk out of the mountain and say, I'll think about it, and she needs to feel like shit for a little while, maybe she needs to feel like shit for a little while.
Within the holy mountain.
Aloy, how did you do that? You entered the heart of the mountain.
Those faithless murderers brought slaughter to our tribe.
Seems you have a special role to play in
escape all
events.
Mother's justice.
The goddess favors you.
She is all Mother's blessing made flesh.
Aloy,
She will destroy.
how kind of you to spend a moment with me before you depart. There can be no doubt now. You are a blessing made flesh, the will of the goddess incarnate.
It's really not that simple, Tirsa. But I guess it's close enough.
I know the path ahead will be dangerous. To kill a metal devil sounds impossible, but I believe in you.
Thank you. The Nora have suffered terrible losses, Tirsa. What's to become of them now?
That will be for the goddess to decide. Only she knows the future. For the moment, my sister matriarchs and I will see to the wounded. And as I promised, anyone who wishes to join you at Meridian, we will declare seekers. I think for the time being, we should remain here in the mountain, close to the goddess.
That might be best. If nothing else, it's a defensible position.
It's frustrating. Only the goddess knows. Only the goddess will decide. Like, dude, this is the really difficult part. This is like the best analogy I can make for Aloy's experience here is you grow up in a really small town that is incredibly homogenous. There's not a lot of diversity. Certainly not a lot of diversity of thought. It's very simple. People survive. They have their ideas about stuff. They have limited access to education and resources. You go to college. You have the opportunity to leave and go to college and get exposed to ideas and humans and relationships, all these things that you never would have dreamed having access to. And then you got to go back home. And now all of a sudden, you're aware of how limited everybody around you is. That is a ridiculously difficult space to occupy from a human evolutionary standpoint, because humans ultimately strive for connection and to be in a group that allows them to survive their environment. And now all of a sudden you see your environment incredibly differently, and you're going to have a harder time connecting with the people around you despite maybe wanting to. Like, Aloy has so much information now And you can't go back on it. You can't unknow all the stuff that she's come across here. So now your interactions with the Nora are like annoying or painful, frustrating, because you can't just get everybody up to speed already or on this in a way that you might want to, so that they can connect with you. Because in order for these people to connect with her in a meaningful way around the way that the world they're in operates, they would have to drop a lot of the stuff that she was essentially forced to drop by accessing all of this information. And there are some people here that are so far down the road in their lifespan that doing that would just be monumentally difficult, even if they wanted to do it. So if you're Aloy now, the cat's out of the bag, and you almost like, I think a lot of people in that scenario then say, like, I am going to branch out. I am going to leave this. But a lot of people will experience guilt narratives around that. They'll be like, should I do that? Should I leave these people behind? Should I pursue this? And the answer is you can be empathic to the ignorance of the people around you and also decide that you want more for yourself and take control of that. And this is Aloy's opportunity to do that. This is Aloy's decision of, do I come back to my hometown and work at the family hardware store and just continue to immerse myself in this small homogenous zone? Or do I go move somewhere and pursue something that I believe is more connected to my purpose? And that is not as easy of a decision for people to make as it often seems like it should be. But Aloy has the, I guess, the benefit of never having been super connected to the Nora in the first place.
Tirsa, I want to know Rost's story. Why he was made an outcast. He never told me. Said he took an oath of silence. What did he do?
Oh. Yes, that.
What crime did he commit?
I will tell you if you wish. But it is a long story. Are you sure you want to hear it now?
Yeah, now more than ever would make complete sense to Aloy. Because, so, it's very interesting. Aloy's directive throughout her life has been to figure out who her mom is. And in some ways, that has been... How do I want to put this? In some ways, that has been counter to a engagement meaningfully with Rost. Where it's sort of like it's like an experience that a adoptive parent might have, where your child knows they're adopted and then just so desperately wants to learn everything about their birth parents. Understandably so, but it cuts into the ability to like connect in certain ways to your child as a result. That's essentially what Rost's experience was. Now that Aloy has found out that she really just straight up didn't have a mother, that she was a clone birthed by the mountain, literally, Rost now takes a more important role in her mind. Where now Rost actually was a parent, essentially. Rost is the thing that I wanted to know all along and was missing from the mother that I didn't know anything about. And so to ask Tirsa for information about Rost now and to have him at front of mind makes a ton of sense, because now it's very clear that that is indeed her like guardian attachment figure. That is her parent for all intents and purposes. So asking this question right now and having him at the forefront of her mind makes complete sense to me, and this is a perfect time to ask about it.
Of course I want to hear it. Tell me.
Rost never committed any crime. He was an outcast by choice.
What? What do you mean?
Many years ago, before the derangement, before the Red Raids, a band of murderous outlanders, 12 in number, struck without warning. At Mother's Vigil, they took hostages, and then pressed on, headed for Devil's Thirst.
Mother's Vigil? Where's that?
You would know it as the Forsaken Village, near the Karja border. But at the time, many families lived there. Rost's was one of them. His mate was killed fighting the Outlanders, and his daughter was among those taken hostage.
His daughter? What was her name?
Alana. She was just 6 years old.
Oh, man.
Nora Braves couldn't stop 12 Outlanders? Or rescue the hostages?
It was quite impossible. We outnumbered them, but every time a Brave came within bowshot, the Outlanders killed a hostage.
What did they come here to do?
That was never discovered. We couldn't track closely enough to observe them. We know they camped beyond Devil's Thirst for 2 days. There were reports of strange noises. And then, as suddenly as they came, the Outlanders made their way back to the border and disappeared.
What happened to Rost's daughter? She was killed?
Rost was one of the Braves who tracked the Outlanders, keeping his distance. There were 6 hostages still alive when they reached the border. Alana among them. Rather than release them, the Outlanders slit their throats and left the corpses just across the border, mocking us.
Why?
Cruelty. They knew the faithful Nora would not leave the sacred land to collect the bodies, let alone pursue them. They thought themselves safe from our vengeance.
Are you saying that Rost went after them? That he became an exile?
No. Rost was beside himself with grief, but even so, he would never have broken taboo.
Then what did he do?
He called upon the most terrible and secret rite of the Nora tribe. He begged to be made a Death Seeker.
A Death Seeker? What is that?
One who dies to go seeking, and in seeking, brings death to others. The ritual drags the spirit from one's body, releasing it to All Mother's care. The heart beats, the mind thinks, but the spirit has moved on.
I don't understand.
Rost went after the Outlanders, but his spirit never left. It remained here with All Mother. He gathered the bodies of the slain and returned them. And then he set out in pursuit, not as an exile, but a weapon of vengeance. A barbed arrow shot from a bow, never to return.
But Rost did return.
Yes. A full year later, and terribly wounded. He collapsed at the border of the sacred land. A hunting party came upon him. He was delirious, in agony. By law, he should have died where he lay. But one of the hunters broke taboo, and reaching across the border, she dragged him to our side.
Who was she?
A brave who'd lost a mate and 2 sons to the very Outlanders that Rost pursued.
So, Rost never finished his mission.
To the contrary, he killed all 12. Tracked them to disparate places the world over, he said. Meridian, Ban-Ur, the Claim, Utaru Land, further even, into the Forbidden West. The last he killed nearly got the best of him. Wounded, he stumbled and crawled back to us, hoping to die as close to the sacred land as he could. He never expected nor asked to be dragged across the border and nursed back to health. That was done to him, leaving us, the matriarchs, in a difficult position.
Why couldn't you just welcome him back?
Rost had been made a Death Seeker, Aloy. He no longer had any place among the tribe. By law, he should have been driven back out. But we couldn't bring ourselves to do that, so we offered a compromise.
Before we hear what that compromise is, this is maybe the most extraordinary example of how arbitrary, socially constructed labels, categories, roles, etc. block us from engaging with the root humanity of a person. They broke taboo. We couldn't bring him, he can't come back across. He can't return. He can't be tended to. He can't do this. For no other reason than these arbitrary laws and labels that we have created and bestowed upon each other. So in our effort to try to organize the chaos that is humanity and existence, we are actively cutting against our ability to engage with the humans sitting in front of us. This is the power of social constructs and labels. This is why objectification and constructs in some ways exist, and it's also the ways that humans can control other humans. Not just the humans that they've labeled as X thing, but also the humans that have bought into the definition of X thing. At the end of the day, Rost is just a dude who watched his daughter's throat get slit. And he wanted vengeance. And he went out and he killed the 12 people that were responsible for that. And he got wounded. And he came back to the people that he entrusted his life to and believes in and follows their doctrine. And they have all this arbitrary nonsense that just muddies up the just bring him in and help the guy. And Rost is part of this too. It's amazing how language and the human's brain's ability to create these abstractions and constructs blocks our nature to just help each other out. So let's see what the compromise was, because it sounds like they engaged with that a little bit.
You made him an outcast.
Yes. We offered to do so on the condition he never speak to anyone of this exception.
After all he did, all he suffered, to be declared an outcast was his reward.
Rost was overjoyed. He never expected to live another day in the sacred land, let alone the embrace, so close to the goddess. He resolved to spend the rest of his days in solitude, and was happy to do so.
But then you found me, and gave me to him.
Yes. Another compromise. The matriarchs feared you, and would not let you be raised by the tribe. And so we turned to Rost. I knew that he would take care of you, bring you up, teach you to worship All-Mother and respect the ways of the tribe.
He certainly tried anyway. You took a man who'd lost his daughter and made him raise an infant girl. Doesn't that strike you as callous?
I'm inclined to think the course of events has shown the wisdom of our choice.
Oh, you don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. The end justifies the means. Oh man, no. You don't get to do that. You don't get to use hindsight as a means to justify a decision that was made. I mean, again, whether you agree with their decision to do this with Rost or not, ultimately it's up to Rost to determine whether this was okay for him. I wish we could talk to him, but I like to think that the way events unfolded was the product of our wisdom. You can't rely on that. You don't get to just use hindsight to make yourself smarter than everybody else. Like, that could have been devastating as much as it could have been anything else, particularly given the fact that we have now learned what Aloy is capable of in terms of saving humanity. That could have gone so wrong. It didn't. Cool. That's great. But you took a massive risk here, and you essentially used this dude. And you don't get to make yourself sound smarter because hindsight worked out in your favor. This is a two-way street here. Okay? I talk all the time in all my playthroughs about how you should never use hindsight to judge the decisions that you make in the past. Because when you make the decisions that you make in the past, you work with the variables that you had in the past. Teersa did not have the benefit of knowing that Aloy was going to grow up to be in this position where she's standing right in front of her. She didn't know that at the time that they made this call. They used other variables. So a lot of people will use hindsight to harshly judge themselves for poor decision making. But it's decision making that you only think is poor because the outcome didn't go the way that you wanted it to. It's the exact same thing for if things work out well. It doesn't make your decision any better because it turned out well. You were still working with the information that you had at that given point in time. If it works out, that's awesome. If it doesn't, then that sucks. But neither one of those is an opportunity for you to be like, oh yeah, like it's totally justified that I made this decision because of how it turned out. You can have a good outcome and be critical of your decision-making process around something. That both and is incredibly crucial. Because you want to learn from it and make better decisions going forward. If this same scenario happened again and Teersa goes, yeah, well, it worked before, so it'll work again, so let's cause a whole bunch of psychological damage to somebody because it worked before. That's not a great idea. In the same way that being averse to something because something didn't work out once is also not good. You have to work with the variables you have in the given moment, in the context you're in now. And you can use a little bit of history to try to learn how to make some modifications, but you don't hang your hat on the hindsight.
And I'm quite certain that from the moment he laid eyes on you, he saw you as a gift and never a burden.
All right, Teersa, that's quite a story.
Sure
It's
is.
time for me to move on. I thank you for doing what you could to help me through the years, and for telling me Rost's story.
I wish I could have done more, but I am just one woman.
As am I. No need to sell ourselves short.
Oh, thank you, Aloy. I will pray for you.
Okay, I guess it can't hurt.
All Mother Mountain open to her.
Boy, it's brutal for Aloy there. Like, engaging with the reality of her family of origin situation is really tough. I was born as a clone in the mountain, and the guy who raised me willingly did it, didn't complain about it, didn't see it as a burden, but did it in the context of some really, like, severe grief and pain. And she couldn't connect with him in some meaningful ways. I mean, think of how connective it would be for her to have been able to have that conversation with Rost. And now it's not, he doesn't have to give her that information, but it sucks that the only way that she can now connect with some of the deeper parts of her dad is from others. And she doesn't have the opportunity to really like engage with him. He engaged with her for who she is, but she never got to fully engage with him for who he is, and that's a bummer. Especially since she just found out she doesn't have a mom to connect with.
Have faith in the goddess. The anointed will wash all signs of corruption away.
Bless you, Aloy.
All right. God, we've moved like 3 minutes down the gameplay.
How did you do that?
Shush her, Rana. She's the anointed.
Oh, God. That would be so infuriating to do. All right. Hey, thanks for being here, by the way. Those of you that are here live on Twitch, thanks for hanging out. If you're here on YouTube, thank you for watching. I appreciate so much that you're willing to follow along with this playthrough and that you care at all about what I have to say about it. I'm grateful to have all of your support, so thank you. Oh, man.
Snow haze. White as bone. That thought got dark.
You said that a lot of times, Aloy. All right. Well, go to the bitter climb. Hey, it's the area that we couldn't access before. Oh, let's see. Just trying to kind of get a lay of the land in terms of like areas that I've gone to and haven't gone to. I wanted to talk to the war chief. Yeah. He's not there though.
Home. To think he built all this alone.
If I was Aloy, this is where I would go.
It's not home anymore. Not without Rost.
Because I just learned a whole lot about you, and the only way I can talk to you is by doing this. Not actually, but...
Hi, Rost. A lot has happened. So, I went inside the mountain. Do you remember the night before the proving? The final lesson you taught me? You said I needed to serve a purpose bigger than myself. Well, it couldn't get much bigger. It's the same purpose that drove Elizabeth and Gaia when they were willing to die for. So yeah, I'll do it. Give myself to that. For Elizabeth and Gaia and for you. Well, I've got a master override to recover, so I guess I'll be on my way. Until next time, Rost.
It's a little bit of a bummer to me that she doesn't say anything about the story she heard. Oh well. So I am gonna be annoying for a second, but I'm gonna go ride down there. It's very odd to me that they wouldn't have her talk about that story, because, like, what an impactful thing to get access to.
What's all this? Alone. So many memories. It's not home anymore. Not without Rost. There's nothing for me here anymore.
All right. I want to go to a couple areas before we go up there. Oh boy. Whoa. What the hell am I doing? My Strider's missing a blaze canister in its ass. It sure is. Oh, okay. I get it. I see. This is just the tutorial area.
Keep the upper hand.
A little stronger now. Any juicy little lore bits? Alright, well, it was worth coming back here just as sort of... I hadn't been there and it was kind of bugging me that I didn't know what it was. And just scanning to see if there's any places that I want to make sure I go to. I mean, obviously we'll go up here at some point. Maybe not. All right. Striders are so hard to control. Yeah. Not my favorite thing in the world. It's hard to make horses control well in games, though. All right. This is not the way. The way is up. Like seriously, I can't think of a game where the horses were easy to control. Like even Red Dead, they're a pain.
Will be hard. Ferocious machines prowl every step of the climb.
More corrupted?
Not corrupted, but they will not tolerate humans.
So what else is new?
I came up here before, so why don't I can cut some of this out. Two pathways. I'm kind of intrigued by the upper pathway. So, an example of how Sylens could connect with Aloy here, by the way, because he's listening in on all of this. Sylens would have done very well here to say something about Rost. Even if Sylens was like, hey, Aloy, I know that you're bummed about the fact that you didn't meet your mom. Sounds like Rost was a cool dude who meant a lot to you. I hope that you are able to remember him in a way that you would have remembered the mother if you had had one. Something like that. If he could empathize with her and say that to her, even if it was just a platitude, it would go such a long way to facilitating a connection of trust with her. Because it shows that he in some ways understands who he's working with. Like, this is the kind of shit that, like, you know, I get that he's like very self-absorbed and he's jealous and he's all these things, but you know, sometimes you gotta play along if you have somebody that you're relying on for help and engage with the humanity of that person. And it's frustrating to me that he doesn't do that. We've gotten it from him one time when he apologized, and that was fine. But keep it coming, dude. God, that river would be so cold. In fact, let's warm up a bit, huh? Would poking in at such a vulnerable moment for Aloy be appreciated? I think so. Because she knows that he's along for the ride. And she knows that... So, look, Sylens is yet another person that's using her for who she is. Like, her whole thing right now is that she's essentially been created for a particular purpose. And Sylens is only engaging with her because of her utility to him. I think in that moment... people get really averse when people are vulnerable to poking in and saying something empathic and warm. And you are so rarely in the wrong for doing that. Like, you are rarely going to make it worse. And the worst thing that could happen is Aloy says, you know, Sylens, I don't need that from you. But even the attempt of empathizing and acknowledging her experience can be registered as a good thing. So there's no real drawback to him coming in and being like, hey, Aloy, I know that you don't like that I listen in on this stuff, but I heard everything about that Rost guy. Sounds like it was meaningful to you. I'm sorry to hear that he's not around. Because especially since you just found out you didn't have a mom. That would be huge. It'd be hugely connective. It would show that Sylens has some humanity in him. It brings her close. It doesn't mean that she has to just automatically be like, all right, cool, you're awesome, Sylens, but there's really no harm in doing that. And if you generally stop yourself from doing that, from the people around you that could potentially use it, you're potentially missing out on creating some nice connection with people. Like there's no, it's the same way when I say that if you ever experience a sense of appreciation for somebody, you should tell them, because people like to hear that they're appreciated. If you ever experience a degree of like empathy or want to acknowledge a person's experience, you should do that. And again, I agree. I don't think Sylens necessarily wants to connect with her. But if Aloy's going to have buy-in on this and is going to be somebody that is going to procure information that he would like her to procure, he might need to humor this a bit. And he's like, oh, but DrMick, that's all hollow. Then he's just doing it for his own gain. Is that really empathy? Maybe not, but again, if you got to play the game. You got it. God, this thing is so cool to look at when you like walk up to it. It never gets old. It's so imposing.
Gaia's sacrifice. It did this. Cracked the inside of the mountain like it was an egg.
Yes, yes. Quickly now. I've prepared the way ahead for you.
So you've been in here before?
To a point. You'll see.
Oh yeah, I already cleared out the enemies. That's true. I did myself a solid back when we were running around here.
You made a climbing path for me, but left an army of machines for me to deal with?
Since when were machines any obstacle for you? If you could fly, I wouldn't have bothered with the climbing path either.
I do appreciate his quips sometimes, though.
Don't look down. Don't look down.
Hey, quick little tip for those of you who haven't watched any of my other playthroughs. When Aloy is climbing this and experience the anxiety of what's going on, and she says, don't look down, she should replace that with what she should look at. So instead of saying, don't look down, you say, look up, watch my hands, pay attention to this. It's a very small linguistic adjustment, but it's very important, because when you say don't look down, the idea of looking down is an image that's now in your head. So instead of that, you focus the affirmative. Here's what I will do instead of what I should not do. Very important. Do that as much as you can. Oh, look at that. There's a ladder here now.
This is exactly the kind of place I expected to find you in, Sylens.
Thank you. It's one of many workshops I've constructed over the years.
It's actually pretty cool. What is this? Boyo? For years I tried to get through this hatch. I drilled, I burned, I blasted.
But we both know that you won't have any trouble getting through.
You make it sound like I should apologize.
Not at all. It never occurred to me that the way through would not be with force, but with a key. A key in human form. The failure of imagination was mine, not yours.
Seems those doors are impenetrable in every possible way. They were engineered very well.
Looks like you've spent a lot of time here.
19 years ago, a great explosion destroyed this mountain. Gaia's death, your birth. The echo could be heard as far as the claim. Ash darkened the skies. How they fretted in Meridian as they tried to read this omen. The crater burned for weeks, but when it cooled, I was the first to behold what lay within. Over time, the machines closed ranks to protect it. Useful. Soon, no one dared to come here. Except me.
'Cause I'm cool.
In her message, Gaia said we could restore her, but after seeing the damage, how could that be?
She said any effort to repair her must come after Hades is destroyed. I concur. Rebuilding the terraforming system now might allow Hades to use it as a weapon. Because of Gaia's sacrifice, it has been forced to search for means that are less convenient.
But do you think it's even possible to restore Gaia?
You know what the cauldrons are capable of. How they fabricate any technology necessary to create a machine. By the same principle, it should be possible to replicate every technology necessary to repair Gaia. But that would take years. And we're counting the time we have left by the hour.
I thought you might actually be here this time. Actually, here.
Why? My presence is unnecessary. You don't need my help to pass through this door. You were the one born to do this, not me.
He is consistently pragmatic. I do appreciate that about him.
It's time for me to head in.
Yes. When you find the Master Override, you will gain the power to defeat Hades.
Everything depends on you.
Genetic identity confirmed. Entry authorized. Greetings, Dr. Sobek. You are cleared to proceed.
It's amazing that Gaia was able to override everything to a point that Sobek would get through. Like, this was so well thought about. The power is yours! Captain Planet, he's our hero. Gonna take corruption down to 0.
Logging arrivals. Shan Margot.
Welcome to Frozen Hell. Population 10.
11 counting Gaia.
Don't count your chicken embryos before they're incubated, hon. She's still firing up. Be a while before you eat that omelet.
I'm vegan, Travis. You'd think we'd worked in the same secret base long enough for you to notice.
We weren't scheduled to shack up here for another 3 weeks. You realize I just lost 350 kilos of pre-code smut comics in transit.
Wait, actual physical media? Why didn't you have it digitized?
Can't beat the feel of physical media on your fingers. And in here, we ain't gonna be touching a whole lot else. Figured I was gonna pass the time archiving them. What about you?
Me? Work, I guess. My task queue stretches out for like 3 years. There's a lot of sharp edges to round off. After that, I hadn't really thought about it.
Oh, you will. You're what, 30? Reckon you'll be the one turning the lights off at the end. Food for thought, huh, vegan?
This sucks forever.
Nah, not forever. Just the rest of your life.
I wonder if that's from Elysium.
Mind your footing.
Thank you, Sylens. You've seen how many times I've died to fall damage, I see. Oh, baby. Wow. The music here is fantastic. I assume this is just a way back up to that ledge. I just like don't want to miss anything.
Guess that's my way across. Don't think, Aloy. Just do it.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Maybe think for a second and strategize.
It's, held like this for 19 years, right?
Well...
Don't answer.
Again, better to not know.
Glad that's over.
Is it? No, we're going up. All right. Up. Yeah, this
must have been where they lived. What's left of it. Once this was all enclosed by rock and metal.
Yeah, so this is Elysium. So the main Gaia hub and Hades hub or whatever. Or Gaia hub is also where Elysium was. That would make sense. So it did exist. Whether it was amazing or not.
Record. I just woke up. I see the numbers, but can't make out the time. I was dreaming of... I was giving a lecture in Q Hall. Maybe it was something more shamanistic. I don't know. An audience of shadowy faces under a blank open sky. I told them the world ended with a bang. A plague of robots. But the last humans. We went out, not with a whimper, but a whisper. You know, in caves, ending like we started, huddled around a flickering glow. The heads of state, the Fortune 5s, the leaders, and lottery winners, and life cults. All of them buried in their little shelters. Some believing they'll live it out some way, somehow, or Elysium, or us here at Gaia Prime. No different. A multitude of tiny societies taking hold, flaring, dying. Some will be beautiful, some horrific, and none of them matter. Short-term civilizations. One last gasp before the long-held breath. Before I wake up, I know the audience is gone. I'm talking to myself, to a quiet planet, a barren sphere. Just Gaia, and her long, long dreaming. I hope she won't be lonely.
Okay, so we're not in Elysium. Just to be very clear, saying that this isn't an ego thing. Saying I'm wrong about something in chat is also a spoiler. If you know that what I'm saying is not true, you should also not say anything, because I'll figure it out with context clues eventually. Let me enjoy the wonder and the majesty of figuring this out along with Aloy.
Evacuation happened so fast. No time to think things through. No time for goodbyes. There were lines in the medical ward. I told Tom Pake I'd be with him when he went under. But there was one last shipment of Paradiseidae zygotes I could get processed if I rushed. I'm still angry at him for forcing me to choose. Angry at myself for... well... he died alone, and I didn't get the bloody birds of paradise saved either. All the time left in the world now to think. Gaia Prime's logs are sealed. Elysium sealed up, safe and sound. A distance of miles, but it might as well be on the other side of the galaxy. If I hadn't been an alpha, if things had gone differently, I could have been there. Instead, I'm spending the rest of my unnatural life in here with people I don't even like.
Oof.
And without the one I would have gladly spent my life with. Given a chance. 2 hours since I signed off on the final executables, and I'm already a bitter old man bitching to his focus. There's a thought for future generations.
Yee. Makes you wonder. I know we talked about this back when we were in the place where you found out about all this. If they couldn't even get to Elysium. Because shit just got crazy. You know, it's the carrot at the end of the stick. I don't know. I mean, maybe not. It's fascinating to hear. I mean, this whole thing is a shit sandwich of expectations not being met. Oh yeah, this shit was absolutely on the wire. I mean, the robots were decimating everything as they were doing all this. Like, in some ways, it's an amazing feat that they were even able to do any of this while the robots were taking over the world. Like, I have to say, the fact that it's incredible what they managed to do. God, like, no room for error on any of it. And then, yeah, and then you have to make a decision. Do you be with the love of your life as they die? Or do you go and do more things for humanity? Do you go and preserve more animals, more knowledge, more data? You follow your directive. I mean, that's an impossible situation. All right, guess we're not gonna preserve birds of paradise because I want to be with my loved one when he died. I mean, I probably would sacrifice birds of paradise to be with my wife when she went under, but still, I mean, it's remarkable the decisions that these people had to make under just astounding duress.
Elizabeth's room. I know it. She didn't even get a chance to unpack. These are her journals. Elizabeth's journals. And they're all destroyed?
Scan them. The Focus can rebuild them, but the process is slow. To us, it seems a powerful...
Okay. File damaged, under repair. Okay, so all of these are under repair.
But its engine is tiny and limited.
How slow?
Days, weeks, years. Concern yourself with stopping Hades and extending the future, and you might live long enough to hear them.
That's fair enough. Solid state storage devices, cursory scan. So yeah, they were still using solid state drives in the year 2064, huh? What part in the game am I at? I'm at this one.
What is this?
If Eclipse shows up here, I swear, I'm gonna lose my mind. All of that for a box, huh? Make me pry doors open for lore. Give me lore. Give me juicy, juicy, juicy lore.
This is Charles Rodson. I'm logging this 6 hours after final deployment of Gaia Prime. This morning, an access port seal malfunctioned. Gaia Prime's port seals were designed to close with a seam of less than 2 millimeters. But this one closed with a 10 millimeter gap. Enough for an energy signature to bleed through. Enough for the swarm to detect this facility.
No way.
Enough for Gaia to be discovered and destroyed. Enough to end the future we worked so hard to make possible. Unless the hatch servos were manually re-engaged from the outside.
No way! What a stupid design flaw. Are you serious? Oh my god! You have the greatest engineers in the world! Oh my god! And the only way that you can do this is to hatch it from the outside? Oh. It's like not funny because that's crazy. And it's the kind of thing that would absolutely happen because you're doing this like ridiculously high level engineering. Like just you have made an AI that is going to terraform the planet in hundreds of years. And you took the doors for granted. Doors. Of all the damn things to screw this up, it's the door engineering. I bet the door engineer that they called chose medical euthanasia. They called this like master door craftsman from like Japan. And the dude like got there and he walked in and he was like, nah, medical euthanasia. I don't want any part of this. They're like, no, bro, doors are so important, dude. Doors are so important. It's the most important shit ever. And he's like, nope. No, I don't want any part of this shit. 80-hour work week? Nope. Is there a union? No. All right, I'm out of here. Nope. Medical euthanasia.
I'm now switching to a recording of the event.
Well, I'm not going out there. Not what I signed up for.
Either we send someone out, or all of this was for nothing.
It should be Liz's decision.
So when is she going to get here?
She said 5 minutes.
Oh, no way. She did it.
Okay, everyone. I've repaired the seal. Gaia?
Seal closure at 1.4 millimeters. Confirmed.
Elizabeth, no. We'll find a way to bring you back in.
It's not gonna happen. The swarm's too close. Really. It's alright. Gaia's complete. She'll take care of things from here on out. That's what she does.
Not like this. There's so much we...
Guys, you know me. I'm no good at endings, at letting things end, so let's not.
So, happy trails, Liz. And see you around.
Yeah. Take care of each other, all right?
Liz.
I'm okay with this. I want to go home. Goodbye.
That was the last transmission of Elizabeth Sobek. She gave everything for the hope of life on this planet. And we are all in her debt.
Makes complete sense to me. I mean, it really does. She essentially fulfilled her purpose. So if Elysium's not for her because there's no more she can do, I mean, that would be amazing. It'd be incredibly painful to an extent. Like you're Elizabeth Sobek. You spent your life creating this. This is the culmination of everything you know. You cleaned up this giant mess, and now you're supposed to just go like sit in a play park for the next 40 years. I mean, I could understand the desire to take this into her hands and to see to completion the thing that you essentially created. It makes a lot of sense to me. You go down with the ship. Like, I'm going to make sure this door is sealed, because if this door is not sealed or we entrust this to somebody who's not all in on it, then the whole thing's for nothing. And I don't want to live out my days knowing that a door malfunction of 8 millimeters screwed this entire thing up. So I'm going to take it into my own hands, and I'm going to go, you're going to wear this badass suit, and I'm going to try to survive the environment and go back to my home, and I'm going to get decimated by the robots like everybody else. Or maybe I'm just going to drink myself to death or whatever. But like, way to take a situation and put it in your own hands. I can appreciate that, especially if everybody's sitting around talking about it. Take control there. Makes sense to me. Yeah, exactly, Skog. Yeah.
Aloy?
She's gone. Really gone.
You knew she couldn't have survived, Aloy. And her achievements were beyond exceptional.
While her people bickered, she was the one who took responsibility. The only one who could.
She was better than them.
That's not what I said.
She was. You shouldn't be afraid to admit it.
I mean, that really falls onto your subjective definition of what better means, but I can understand why he would express that sentiment. I don't think there's much reason to be angry at him there. I mean, I think in some ways he's agreeing with her. I don't like any of these responses. Like, she was the head of the whole thing. She was, I mean, better than them. I don't know. Not in the way that you mean. You just don't get it. Stop acting like a machine. He does get it. Not in the way that you mean. Stop acting like a machine. That doesn't feel particularly... let's go with not in the way that you mean.
You think she was better because she was smart. Because she designed Zero Dawn, but you missed the point. What made her great was that she was willing to sacrifice herself. For others. For everyone who would come later.
No. She couldn't let her creation fail. You're confusing will for sentimentality.
You're wrong. Remember, she knew it wasn't enough for Gaia to think. She taught Gaia to feel. To care, to sacrifice, to believe in life. Enough to fight against hopelessness.
Okay. This is this is beautiful. Gorilla nailed this. Whether intentionally or not, Gorilla absolutely nailed this moment. Because this is absolutely the result of what I was talking about while we were walking up the mountain. Because of Sylens and to an extent Aloy's refusal to engage with each other in a meaningful way and to really connect, they're hashing out their bullshit through this conversation about the intentions and the legacy of Elizabeth Sobek, which is a worthless argument. The reality is, it's both. Elizabeth had will, she had strength, she had intelligence, she was maybe the only person who could do that, or she was the only person who had the wherewithal to say, I'm going to take this into my own hands. And she did it from a sense of emotional connection to humanity, and she also did it for pragmatic reasons. It's all of the above. It's what makes Elizabeth such a powerful force. So the fact that they're arguing about this is more to do about their interactional bullshit. It's about the dynamic that they have. And so they're burying the lead on this entire thing because of the fact that they haven't made an effort to really understand and connect with the reasons why each of them is there. This is why it's so important to try to cultivate connection with people that you're going to have to go on these long treks and adventures with. Like, this is why. Because if you don't do it, it's like when I do couples therapy and people argue about stupid bullshit. They're really arguing about bigger matters. It's really about a dynamic between the two of them. But because that dynamic hasn't been addressed, we find it in fighting about the grass being cut too low. You get into these weird semantic arguments that don't make a lot of sense because the reality is both of them have an appreciation for Elizabeth and what she brought to the world and what she was capable of, and they're not coming together on that. They're arguing. It's annoying to witness because you know that they're both in some ways on the same page. But they're letting their own crap get in front of it. And I would argue that Sylens has more work to do on this than Aloy does.
If it wasn't for that sentimentality, life would have ended. You and I would never have existed.
Your argument is sound. I'm sorry for your loss.
She said she wanted to go home. Maybe.
What?
Nothing. It's time to go on.
Maybe her home exists. Well, I'm glad that Sylens was able to catch himself there. So, that's nice. I said Sylens needs to do more of the work, and then he did some work there. Good for him. I give him credit for that. Now we got juicy data to scan. Gimme.
You'd hate it, Liz, but I wrote you a eulogy. I had to try to express all your children. After all Apollo has taught them, they'll think they know everything. But they have to understand what you did for them. How you loved the whole world so much. With an intensity that was dazzling. Bruising. And in the end, it killed you. Or you died for it. Different perspectives. No one could keep up with you, live up to you. I don't know, maybe if I hadn't taken that postdoc in Joburg. I'm glad you shot down the Lightkeeper protocol in the end. I don't think I could have taken seeing another one of you. I mean, Elizabeth Sobek. There's only one. I miss you.
How fascinating. I know I said this a couple episodes ago, but how fascinating that Elizabeth Sobek's clone is listening to this message. Also, she shot down the protocol that brought me back. So I wonder if Gaia evolved to a point where she was like, nah, screw that. This is necessary. Kind of interesting little nugget in there. I mean, it would have been discussed. It 1000% would have been discussed. Let's clone Elizabeth. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you have the possibility to clone the person who created Zero Dawn? 1000% you would entertain that idea. So if Elizabeth shot that down, but it happened, somebody decided to put that in there, or Gaia decided on her own that it was the best course of action. Hard to know.
Look, Liz, you're a pretty stand-up gal. I'm sorry you died. If you had a home to go to, I hope you got there first. But this monument Ronson's made to you? Kinda creepy if you ask me. Rest in peace, Liz. God knows you earned it.
Look at that. My man Travis even could come around on that. Ted Farrow.
Hell, Liz. I know you're never gonna hear this. That's not the point. You got to play the savior and the martyr all at once this time. Great work.
No way that's it. No way. Oh, Teddy. Teddy, you're killing me, buddy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Teddy did some shit, man. Old Teddy did some shit. Oh, man. It's so obvious that Ted fucked this up. It's... Oh, God. Oh, man. That dude is sitting around feeling sorry for himself, and I guarantee you he made some dumbass decisions on this, and we are gonna learn what they are. Oh, boy.
Hello, Margot. How are you holding up?
Dr. Ronson, I've been getting a lot of messages, unsolicited messages from Ted.
Margot, I'm sorry. With Liz gone, we've got no one to run interference with him. I'll talk to Ted. He mostly wants updates, constant updates, hundreds of updates on things he knows nothing about. Liz used to field all of his crap.
He doesn't understand the systems at all. That was kind of by design. But he's getting pretty sketchy with me.
We just have to keep him happy. Liz always said keep him happy.
Are you kidding? You ever hear how she talked to him?
She was managing him, Margot.
I mean, maybe I should ignore him. He's buried in his pyramid with the Hola Hola girls and Panta Antimod cuckoos. What can he do?
Oh, what can he do? You know, this is the oh, man. Oh, this is gonna go so bad. This is gonna go so bad. This is a outrageously complicated issue. I got to think about how I want to talk through this. It is wholly frustrating how Ted Farrow made himself not indispensable, but pretty close to it. Unfortunately, for how much bullshit Ted pulled in order to make all this happen, he does have utility. Elizabeth is obviously one of, if not the most intelligent person in that entire group. Not just from a like knowledge IQ standpoint. Elizabeth knows how to handle people. And that is a ridiculously I don't want uncommon, but it's a really valuable position to hold if you can connect and understand people and be incredibly intelligent in other means like this. And so when Elizabeth says, keep Ted happy, that probably feels gross to a lot of people. Like that feels gross. Why should Ted Farrow, the person who brought destruction to all of humanity, why should he get to be happy? And it is unfair. And it is also very intelligent on Elizabeth Sobek's part to encourage that. Because when Ted Farrow is unhappy and angsty, he's dangerous because of how much he knows, because of the resources he has. Now, the resources, I would guess, are going to kind of go by the wayside because who cares about money when the world is done, right? Like, all of a sudden, currency doesn't really matter in a space like Elysium or wherever they are. But Ted Farrow, with information, is smart enough to figure this shit out. And if he's not happy, which it's pretty obvious in the message he left Elizabeth Sobek, he's not happy. He's going to start thinking, and he's going to start spinning his wheels, and he is going to start thinking about how all of this is his fault. Because again, Ted Farrow is not a sociopath. Ted Farrow experiences a lot of guilt. He experiences frustration and sadness, disappointment in himself around the idea that all of this happened. I don't think Ted Farrow looks at robots decimating the earth and thinks to himself, yeah, I did that. I think he looks at that and says, oh my God, I did that. And is plagued with a sense that he needs to do something about it. But I think also his own ego is pushing him into a place where he thinks he has to preserve his legacy. He sees Elizabeth Sobek remembered the way he hoped to be remembered. And that is killing him because it exacerbates this sense of everything's my fault and this is what everybody's going to remember. Everybody's going to hear that Elizabeth Sobek saved the world and Ted Farrow destroyed it. And he doesn't like that. Because even though he's going to be long dead before anybody's around to remember him that way, in the immediate moment, that still matters to him. And he's going to make decisions based on what he can control in the here and now. So he starts asking for updates. He starts learning the system. He's pissed off because Elizabeth is remembered the way that he wanted to be, and he starts making poor decisions as a result of it. And these people have disdain for him, understandably so, and they are probably letting their own frustration with the fact that they're in the position they're in cloud their judgment on Ted. They're probably thinking like, you know what? Yeah, screw him. He wants to go sit in his rich ass bunker with all the digital you know what that he can get. Screw him. But Elizabeth knew what she was doing. She knew how to manage him. She knew how to respond to his guilt. She knew how to hold him in his place. She knew how to make sure that he didn't have access to a bunch of information. And she knew how to make sure that he was kept satisfied and pacified so that he wasn't dangerous. And there's only so much that you can do to impart that on people. She managed him, and these other people don't
have all the contextual knowledge and history with Ted to be able to manage him in any kind of meaningful way, and they may have even been misguided on understanding what it means to keep him happy. So this is not good. There are a lot of contextual clues here that suggest that Ted Farrow probably went rogue on this. And all because, you know, could you have isolated him in his own bunker and punished him? You certainly could, but does he potentially have utility here if something goes wrong? Maybe. This is not great, man. This is not great. So we'll see what's behind this door when we get to part 26. We're just gonna sit on the intentions of old Teddy here as we await part 26. YouTube, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. If you want to come hang out with us on Twitch sometime, I would absolutely love to see you. This has been an absolute blast to get into all of this. It's absolutely wonderful. I hope that my thoughts are meaningful in some way. I do my best to say what comes to my mind. Again, I don't claim to be right about any of this stuff. It's just me talking my way through it, and y'all seem to enjoy that. So thank you very much for the thumbs up, for the subscription, for the comments, for following the links down in the description. Would love to hang out with you on some of the other platforms if you can bring your way over there. Thank you very much for all of your support. And I will catch you if you're binging. I'll see you in the next one. If you're waiting for the next one to come out, I'll get it out as fast as I can. Appreciate you. See you on the next one.